Hey guys, good now folks, I hope you're doing well, and today I bring another deck tech video. So today we're going to be saying the winner of this week's vote, which is, well, I guess, we had the art there, you could have already guessed it, but yes, Jund Deserts. It was the winner of this week's vote, and yeah, let's talk about it. Oh, sorry. Before we begin, I would like to point out that this deck was actually brought up by one of my subscribers. Yes, Arthur from Vitória, capital of Espírito Santo here in Brazil. So hey man, hope you're watching this. And once again, thank you for suggesting this deck. This deck is amazing and it's very fun. Yeah, Jund Deserts. Let's talk about it. Let's bring the deck here. Yes, here it is. So, I will walk you through it. Some of the cards here, because there are somewhat unknown. Some of them are not well known in the PAUPER format. So yeah, let's talk about it. So we have 2 copies of Nyxborn Hydra. Everyone knows that. 2 copies of Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs. It's a 2-mana 0/4 wall creature with a defender, and it has an activated ability which says tap. This creature deals 1 damage to target opponent. That's very relevant. And I'll tell you why. And you can only activate this ability if you control a desert or you have a desert in your graveyard. As the name says, Jund Deserts, we have 14 of them. So yeah, it's really easy to activate that guy. On top of that, we have 4 copies of Raven of Fell Omens, which is a 2-mana, 1/2 flying creature. Whenever you commit a crime with a passive ability, whenever you commit a crime, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. This ability only triggers once each turn. So for those who don't know what committing a crime is in Magic, so whenever you target one of your opponent's permanents, or whenever you target your opponent or anything in their graveyard or even in the stack. Yeah, if you target a spell as well, that's committing a crime. Okay? So every time we commit a crime, we drain our opponent for 1. And if you get multiple ravens on the battlefield, it gets nuts very fast. Yeah, so moving on. 4 copies of Eldrazi Repurposer, 4 copies of Writhing Chrysalis, 2 copies of Blood Fountain, 2 copies of Unholy Heat, 3 copies of Cast Down, 1 copy of Urborg Repossession. This card, you might not know it. So it's a 1-mana sorcery with kicker. You can pay green and 1 colorless to enhance its effect. So for 1 mana, you bring back a creature from your graveyard to your hand, and you gain 2 life. If you pay the kicker cost, you may return 1 more target permanent from your graveyard to your hand. So that means if you pay the kicker cost, you can bring a creature and an artifact, or a creature and a land, a creature and whatever, from your graveyard to your hand. Most of the time, we're going to bring back 2 creatures. So this is basically our 3rd Blood Fountain, but sometimes we can bring back a Ichor Wellspring or even a Blood Fountain, which allows us to bring back more creatures from our graveyard in the ultra late game. Yeah, moving on. 4 copies of Dance of the Tumbleweeds. Yes, this is our bread and butter right there. One of the cards. Yeah, for 2 mana, and then you have to choose more modes to cast it. For 1 more mana, paying 3 in total, you ramp a desert. Yes, you search our library for a desert, put it on the battlefield, and shuffle. You can also search for basic lands, by the way. And they come untapped, so you can still use that mana on that turn, unless you're ramping in, unless you're getting one of the 12 deserts that enters tapped, so deadline doesn't really matter. And the second mode is you pay 3 plus the 2 of the original cost, so 5 in total. You create an XX elemental creature, token creature, where X is the number of lands you control. So if you pay 5, that means you have 5 mana. Therefore, you're going to create a 5/5. And if you have 6 mana, you can pay for both modes, ramp a desert, and then create a token, which means, yeah, it's going to be huge. Yeah. On top of that, we have 2 copies of Desert's Dew, which is an instant spell that costs 2 mana. Target creature gets -2/-2, plus an additional -1/-1 for each desert you control. So, yeah, let's suppose you have 3 deserts in play. So then this card will So this card will debuff target creature by -5/-5. So 2 of the original what's printed in the card plus -3/-3 additional for because of the deserts you control. Damn, that was hard. Anyway, 2 copies of Suffocating Fumes. 4 copies of Eviscerator's Insight. So that's what I've been using to replace Deadly Dispute. 4 copies of Ichor Wellspring. Very straightforward. It's a mid-range deck, so we need that drawing capability that black currently offers. Yeah, so that's the main deck. And for the mana base, we have 12 pink lands. Yes, so 4 green-red deserts, 4 black-green ones, and 4 red-black deserts. So they all come into the battlefield tapped, and when they enter, they deal 1 damage to target opponent. Yes, it triggers the Raven by just playing a land. Awesome, isn't it? And yeah, we have 2 copies of Desert. Yes, it's just called Desert. This card is quite old. It hasn't seen much play in decades, but it does have a home here because it's a desert, so we can fetch it with Dance of the Tumbleweeds, and it's a nice addition to the deck. It comes untapped, so we can generate colorless mana whenever it enters, and it has an extra ability. Tap. It deals 1 damage to target attacking creature. But you can only use this effect at the end of the combat phase. So in Magic, it's kind of rare to see a card using that phase. It's something that's not often seen in Magic at all. Usually after damage, you're very looking forward for the second main phase. But this card, let's say, it creates another phase between the damage step and the second main phase, which is not often seen, but this is one of those cards. So what does that mean? You're going to have to take the damage, and only then you can activate this land. So, but I will have taken the damage, so it's not very useful. It is. Against fairies, against small creatures like elves, tokens, or anything with 1 toughness, you're going to take the damage, but you're going to kill a creature for just tapping a land. That's good enough for me. And it also triggers the Raven. Yes, it's a crime. You're targeting something your opponent controls. Therefore, it's a free trigger for you. So it's just awesome. On top of that, we have 5 basics, 2 forests, 2 swamps, 1 mountain, and 1 twisted landscape. So the fetch for this deck. Yeah, I think I've covered everything. So let's talk a bit about the deck and what it tries to do. As we've seen, it has 12 deserts. So a lot of tapped lands that when enter will deal 1 damage to your opponent. That can be very annoying, very annoying, especially if you have the Raven in play. That means you can deal 1 damage with the land, with your lands every turn, plus drain 1 life every turn with the Raven. And if that wasn't enough, we have many removal spells. We have 7 plus 2 fumes. So you can trigger the Raven once in your turn and once during your opponent's turn. So that's 2 drain per turn per Raven. Yes, that's ludicrous. Yeah, so early game, what we want to do is try to cast the Raven as fast as possible, get the draining going, and in the mid to late game, we want to cast Eldrazi Repurposer and Writhing Chrysalis and take over the game. And as a finisher, we have those and the Nyxborn Hydra. I might not have mentioned, but we have, I did. We have 2 copies of Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs, which, is just, it combos, it synergizes with the Raven. So during your turn, you can trigger the Raven with your land. And if you don't have an instant or something to cast on your opponent's turn, you can just use the wall and keep triggering the Raven non-stop. So just by having wall and the Raven in play, that's already 2 damage, and you gain 1 life per turn. Yeah, and if you can complement that with a land during your turn, that's 4 damage and 2 life gain per turn. It's very annoying, and it looks like it's easy to deal with, but it's not that much. I mean, by the time your opponent finally deals with the Raven, you might have drained 6 to 8 life, and maybe you find another one, and the game goes to hell very fast. And if that wasn't enough, we have Writhing Chrysalis, the best creature of that combination of colors. But let's talk about the rest of the deck a little bit. Yeah, Dance of the Tumbleweeds. That's our ramp. If you don't have anything to do on turn 3 or 4, you want to ramp. And usually the second or third time you're going to cast this card, so the second and the third copy, you might want to do it paying 5 or 6, best case scenario, 6. That allows you to hemp and create a 6/6, 7/7, 8/8, or plus elemental creature, which, it's a huge creature and will help you finish the game. Yeah. I think the rest of the deck is very straightforward. We have the Ichor plus draw 2 engine right there, which allows you to refill your hand. And, Eviscerator's Insight can also be used in a creature that's being targeted or any of your many tokens. So, yeah, the deck synergizes very well, but it tends to be somewhat slow because we have a lot of, tapped lands. So you need to cast your Repurposes and Chrysalis as fast as possible. So their tokens help you deal with the limited mana per turn. Yeah, we have replenishing tools like Urborg Repossession and Blood Fountain, which will help you in the late game. Being able to bring back Chrysalis and or the Raven is, pretty broken if you ask me. Yeah. So this is the main deck. If you have any questions or doubts, please use the comment section for that. But now let's talk about the sideboard. So for the sideboard, we have 3 copies of Relic of Progenitus. And yes, in this deck, it's better than the Hughes Spellbomb, but I'll tell you why. 1 copy of Campfire, 2 copies of Cast into the Fire, 2 copies of Troublemaker Oof, 2 copies of Weather the Storm, 2 copies of Fiery Cannonade, 1 copy of Trespasser's Curse, 1 copy of Seal of Primordium, and 1 copy of Unexpected Fangs. This is my sideboard of choice. Let's talk about it. Yeah, we're using 3 Relics of Progenitus. It helps against, graveyard strategies like Dredge, like Scrad, which has been kind of disappeared lately, but it helps. And it has a great feature attached to it. Yeah, let me tell you. If you tap Relic of Progenitus, it says target opponent exiles a card from their graveyard, or target player, I think. But anyway, that triggers the Raven. So it's 1 more card that will give you a free trigger every turn. And on top of that, you can just, let's say, cycle it, removing your graveyards. And, it's a cantrip, kind of. Yeah, it's synergetic with the Raven and somewhat anti-synergetic with Blood Fountain and Urborg Repossession. So whenever you're bringing it in, you might consider, removing those because they might not be that useful. It will depend on each match. 1 copy of Campfire against, very aggressive decks where we need to try to stabilize by gaining life. And also, very important, Campfire not only gains life. With its second ability, you pay 2, tap it, I think you exile it, and then you shuffle your graveyard into your deck. Yes. It's a it's an anti-High Tide deck. Card. High Tide tries to win by milling you to death, and Campfire just, shuffles your graveyard into your deck, so you won't die that way. Of course, 1 copy won't perform miracles, but it's something. 2 copies of Cast into the Fire against artifact decks and or small creature decks. You can try to do a 2-for-1, or just exiling like an indestructible land. What else? 2 copies of Troublemaker Oof against, artifacts and enchantments. We got plenty of tokens to sacrifice, and or just Ichor Wellspring. So it synergizes very well with what we want to do. And being able to bring it back with Blood Fountain is just amazing. The fact that we can just keep on dealing with artifacts and enchantments, it feels good. 2 copies of Weather the Storm, pretty self-explainable. We need to stabilize the game against fast decks, so that's our life gain of choice. It helps us, stabilize against Rakdos Madness, Rakdos Burn, or Mono Red Ping/Burn. It gains you enough life so you can, finally play your creatures and stabilize. So that's all the deck wants. 2 copies of Fiery Cannonade against, creature decks like White Winnie, Elves, Slivers, maybe against Boros Synthesizer or Urzulf Blade. 1 copy of Trespasser's Curse against, all of those decks I mentioned. It might not seem that good, but it actually is. It's a draining effect. This deck loves it. And it will help you gain some life back from, all the punches you're going to take early game. So it helps you stabilize and deal some extra damage to your opponent. Usually, 1 or 2 Ravens, whenever they stick, they deal a lot of damage, but most of the time you miss that final, let's say, 6 to 8 points of damage, and maybe Trespasser's Curse can get you there, especially against aggressive decks. I used to play it against Glee to try to stop the combo or to slow down the combo. But, it still has some use, I would say. One copy of Seal of Primordium. It's an enchantment with like a neutralize attached to it. So it's 2 mana enchantment. You sack it, destroy target enchantment or artifact. And why is that relevant? The fact that it's a permanent means that we can get it back with Urborg Repossession. Yes, so we can bring back a hate card from our graveyard in the late game. So that flexibility is quite appreciated. And yeah, it deserves a slot in our sideboard. And last but not least, Unexpected Things. We're going to use that against non-interactive decks to make sure it sticks, like Elves and Slivers and maybe Brew Ramp. Because, like I said, it will help you stabilize. Well, I didn't quite say that. It's good because it sticks against those decks. Like, they won't have removal to kill your creature and you won't lose Fangs in the process. And, being able to block a creature, try to win the combat with the +1/+1, and gain life in the process, just huge. Especially against Rakdos Burn, because usually they don't pack any removal spells besides Burn. And yeah, they cannot by any means kill your Chrysalis when it has more than 3 or 4 toughness. If you attach Unexpected Things to it, game over. They can't recover unless they spend 2 or 3 burn spells on it. I think I've covered everything. Now let's talk a bit about the good and the bad matchups. I will be talking, about my experience. Historically speaking, you haven't seen this deck lately in, on MTG Top 8, for instance, or MTG Goldfish. It's one of those underdog decks. You might not see it regularly, but whenever it shows up, it does damage. It's very fun to play with this deck. I simply love it. So once again, thank you, Arthur. For suggesting this deck. This deck is just amazing. So good and bad matchups. Talking about my experience, I've had a lot of trouble with Brew Ramp and Brew Ponza. Those decks, they ramp into big creatures very fast, and we don't have that much time. This deck takes its time to develop its game plan. Usually, if we can get to turn 5 or 6 with a good life total, we can, stop the bleeding and take over the game. But, Brew Ramp doesn't give you that much time. It's Elf into Enchantment, into Chrysalis, into something cascading something else. So by that time, you're probably casting your first ramp or maybe a repurposer. And yeah, it's hard. It's a matchup that was not meant for Jund Deserts to win. But we have the tools, especially after game 1. We can bring in Troublemaker Oof, Seal of Primordium, and Unexpected Things, and try to, stabilize. And if you can stabilize and, catch some creatures off guard and slam a Raven into the battlefield to drain your opponent, it's doable. But I would say it's a 70-30 proportion. Like, you're going to lose 70% of your games. Especially if they're on the play, it's just nuts. But you know what? We need more 1-mana removals, like Lightning Bolt. I'm not really happy with Unholy Heat. Anyway, Ponza is sort of the same. They're going to ramp into destroying your lands. And considering we have a lot of tapped lands, you know, they're going to slow us down even further. And this deck struggles against that because, well, first of all, it's a 3-colored deck. If they're able to choose which land they are destroying, that means they can try to screw one of your colors. And therefore, you will be limited not just in amount of mana, but colored mana. Yeah, I mean, I've never won against Ponza, but again, I just played against 2. I had a really tough time against Gru Ramp. It's a very hard matchup. You need to be on the play. You need to kill their early creatures and try to stabilize. But it's not always possible. Yeah, so those are really bad matchups. I would say that Fairies is a bad matchup too. Just because you're slow and they have all the time in the world to develop their game plan. Which is, you know, play a fairy, return it to your hand with a ninja. You're gonna, you know, start drawing a lot of cards, and you know your opponent will be just overwhelmed. Yeah, so good matchups. By experience, okay, I've had a really good time against Jund Wildfire. Yes. They're both slow decks. I think they have somewhat the same speed. Jund Wildfire tends to be a bit more effective with its spells, but you know you can get hated on by artifact removal, which does not affect Jund Deserts. But anyway, talking about this matchup, usually Jund Wildfire has a really bad time against the Raven. You're not attacking into a Chrysalis with it, and usually they pack 2 to 3 copies of Cast Down and 3 to 4 copies of Sniff Out, which doesn't kill the Raven, can't target it. It's black. It's a black creature, so they don't have that many removals that can actually kill the Raven. Krarklan Shaman doesn't get it, so yeah, it's tricky for them. If the Raven sticks, it's a lot of damage every turn, and they have a hard time they have a hard time trying to stop the bleeding, because usually they can do it by casting Toxin Analysis on their Krarklan Shaman and wiping the battlefield. Which won't happen because Raven won't get affected. And, you know, they might get a Chrysalis or 2, maybe a Eldrazi Repurposer, and the other creatures, but they're not numerous. So all you got to do is play carefully, and the matchup is all yours. What else? Urzov Blade is a good matchup. Usually they have a really hard time dealing with tokens from the Repurposer or the Chrysalis. You know, Tithing Blade really sucks against this deck. Green Bauble doesn't, hits the Raven, but that's it. And yeah, I mean, sure, Cast Down hits pretty much everything, and Trub and Charm may hit everything. It's sort of situational. But yeah, usually it has a good time against those decks. Chrysalis tends to just stop their game plan. It blocks everything they have. It creates bodies, so Tithing Blade won't affect you as hard. Yeah. The same goes for Boros Synthesizer. It's even worse than Urzov Blade. I mean, the matchup. It's worse for them because usually they don't pack good removals against the Chrysalis. They may have 1 or 2 copies of Journey to Nowhere or Trab and Charm, but again, those are situational. And on game 2, we're going to bring in the Oof and the Cast into the Fire to try to screw with their lands, and Seal of Primordium to enhance your chances. Marduk Synthesizer, same idea. I think it's a bad matchup. What else? Usually non-interactive creature decks like elves and slivers tend to have a hard time against this deck because you're just able to slam Raven and do whatever you want. So yeah, it's hard for them to deal with that pressure every single turn. And if you're able to slam Chrysalis and stop the bleeding, it's just even worse. I think I've covered everything. If you'd like to know about a specific matchup, how to play against a specific deck, please let me know in the comments below. If you think if I missed anything or you would like to add something, yes, please make use of the comment section for that. I hope you have enjoyed today's deck and video, and I guess so. See you next time. Bye.